Even if you've never visited Paris, you could feel as if you were familiar with the City of Light, and in most cities throughout the world. You had to be scraping the bottom of the barrel to find 5 truly worthy activities. In Paris, though, this will never be the case. There will never be a shortage of ideas with the number of world-class museums and sites that we all know and enjoy. You could probably produce enough with the rejects and still have a great time in Paris. You can't make a list like this without include tried and true favorites like the Louvre and the Eiffel Tower. But we've also included a few sought-after sites and experiences that are worth the extra RER or Metro ride. Let's see best places to visit in Paris. Number 1. The Louvre. The world's largest and most visited art museum has enough content to warrant its own article. The Louvre Palace began as a medieval stronghold before becoming a gallery in the 1700s for artists to study antiquities and old master paintings. After 230 years, you are left with a museum that would take weeks to completely understand. There are antiquities from a variety of different cultures on display, as well as a Renaissance and Baroque art collection that rivals any other museum on the planet. Number 2. Musée d'Orsay. A compilation of French art and culture from the mid-19th century to 1914 is housed in the awe-inspiring confines of a Beaux Arts train station. The Gare d'Orsay, located on the left side of the Seine, was erected in 1900 for the Universal Exposition. The building sat empty after becoming outmoded for modern train travel before being listed and converted into one of the world's largest art museums, filling the gap between the Louvre and the National Museum of Modern Art at the Pompidou Center. Countless classic works of art by Impressionists and Post-Impressionists such as Renoir, Cezanne, Van Gogh, and Manet may be found in this unique location. Number 3. Eiffel Tower. Even with the lines and safety precautions, how could you visit Paris and not visit one of the world's most recognized landmarks? The tower, which was built in time for the 1889 World's Fair, stands at 324 meters and was the country's highest structure until the Millau Viaduct was finished in 2004. It scarcely needs an introduction as a tourist destination if you're visiting the city for the first time. It should be a top priority. However, if you're returning after a few years, you can see the city's new landmarks from the observation decks, such as the Fondation Louis Vuitton. Every year, about 7 million people climb the Eiffel Tower. The majority visit the first 2 floors, which contain shops and restaurants, while the third level, at 276 meters, remains Europe's highest accessible observation deck. Number 4. Notre Dame. The unmistakable towers of Notre Dame rise from the eastern edge of the Isle de la Cité in the Seine, making it the world's most famous and adored Gothic landmark. The cathedral, located in the heart of Paris's medieval district, was began in 1163 and completed slightly over 200 years later. After suffering damage during the Revolution, the master restorer Viollet-le-Duc restored the monument in the 19th century. From the unparalleled art on the facades to the rose windows, stained glass, bell, and the panorama from its towers, there are many reasons to face the throng and see Notre Dame. Number 5. Arc de Triomphe. The colossal Astiller Arch on Place de l'Etoile, near the western end of the Champs-Élysées, was created to commemorate the victories and war dead of the French Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars. The Arc de Triomphe also serves as the focal point of the Axe Historique, which runs from La Défense in the west to the Louvre in the east and connects monuments. The arch's facade, meanwhile, are carved with reliefs depicting major events from the 1790s and 1800s, such as the Battle of Austerlitz and the Fall of Alexandria. Sculptural groups, including the famed Marseillaise, which has a winged personification of liberty leading the volunteers to represent the Revolution's 10 August uprising, are mounted on the pillars. Finally, the names of the day's military leaders are carved into the pillars, with those who perished in battle highlighted. Number 6. Place de la Concorde. Between the Champs-Élysées and the Tuileries Garden, Paris's greatest square was planned in 1755 and completed in 1772. Place Louis XV was given to it early on, and at the northern end of the square are a pair of magnificent specimens of Rococo Louis Quinze architecture, which was popular during his reign. However, as time passed, the equestrian statue of Louis Roman XV was removed in 1789 when the area was renamed Place de la Revolution. A guillotine was erected, And here the French nobility's pillars, including Louis and Marie Antoinette, were beheaded. Today, visitors must view the fountains built during Louis rule Philippe's in the 1830s, as well as the 3,500-year-old obelisk in the center, which previously stood at the Luxor Temple's entrance. Number 7. Palais Garnier. The Palais Garnier, like the Eiffel Tower and the Louvre, is a symbol of Paris. It is also the world's most famous opera house. Napoleon Roman III commissioned the venue in the 1870s to coincide with Baron Haussmann's Great Reconstruction of Paris. Palais Garnier is named after its architect Charles Garnier, who designed it in an opulent Beaux Arts style. Between its Corinthian columns, the front includes busts of prominent composers over figurative sculptures representing the arts. You may see the interior as it was meant to be seen at an opera performance. Expect to queue quickly, or take a tour to be wowed by the grandeur of the Grand Foyer and Grand Staircase. Number 8. Tuileries Garden. The former Tuileries Palace Garden is located on the axe historique between the Louvre and the Place de la Concorde. The term stems from the fact that this region was first landscaped in the 1560s by Catherine de Medici on the site of defunct tile factory. Later, the grounds were redesigned in the French formal style by court landscape architect André Lenader, with a round grand basin fountain as the focal point. The Jardin des Tuileries was a royal property that only opened to the public after the Revolution. In 1792, it was the site of a massacre when a crowd attempted to assassinate Louis, and the Swiss guard guarding the monarch was killed. Number 9. Montmartre. Montmartre is a more intimate Paris away from the big boulevards and towering apartment towers. It is a byword for Belle Epoque bohemianism. On the steep slope of the Butte Montmartre, these cobblestone streets are flanked by adorable, low cottages and urge you to explore to your heart's delight. Monet, Toulouse-Lautrec, Renoir, Pissarro, Van Gogh, and Modigliani all lived and worked in Montmartre during the later decades of the 19th century, putting the neighborhood on the map. Of course, there's nightlife, which gets more raunchy lower down the hill in the Pigalle district, which is home to the Moulin Rouge. The Moulin de la Galette, a 17th century windmill immortalized by Renoir, Van Gogh, and Pissarro, is worth a visit. Number 10. Seine River. Although it may be cliched, there's logic to taking a sail down the Seine. That's because many of Paris's monuments, from the Eiffel Tower in the west to Notre Dame in the east, are located along the river. You'll float by iconic embankments and under bridges like the Pont Neuf and Pont Alexander Roman III, all while listening to a continuous guided commentary. Badoc Smalches and Badoc Parisiens run a duopoly in the river excursions business, and both provide a variety of cruises, whether you want a simple sightseeing trip in a glass boat or exquisite dining on the water in the evening.